We made it. We made it. Division previews have finally come. Welcome, everybody, to a fantastic and very special episode of OC and TJ. We finally made it to the division previews because this offseason has been so boring. It has not kept us awake. Well, this past week has because of the Giants' hard knocks. The receiver series came out, so it's a sign that we're almost getting there. And I think we're a few weeks away from the Hall of Fame game, but we finally have made it to division previews. It's going to be epic, and it's going to be fun. And if you think this episode is going to be exciting, just wait until you see the next 7 divisions. So before we, get into what we're about to talk about, it's OC, it's my buddy TJ. What is happening?
Finally, some stuff to talk about. It's been quite the off season with a bunch of nothing. So excited to finally get into. This is how you know the season's starting to get pick up. After July 4th is when got a few weeks to training camp, and then you get some of these filler shows. I feel like Hard Knocks and the receiver series. I mean, those are cool, but I want to see the actual games get played. So
exactly.
Excited
There's the Giants.
Be close with everything. So
yeah. So how many episodes of the Giants Hard Knocks are there going to be? Is it 5?
I mean, the regular Hard Knocks thing is usually 4 or 5, so I'd assume probably 2 or 3 more.
Yeah. So we have that. Next month is when they do the Bears, which is fitting for this division preview. And then we got for the regular season, we got the whole AFC North. So that is going to be epic. And we're going to talk about the Bears later on, but for now, let's do our first division preview, the NFC North. Definitely looking like one of the more intriguing divisions heading into the offseason because you got the Detroit Lions who are trying to make it back to the NFC Championship after a crushing defeat to the 49ers. The Packers are a team that showed that they are on the rise with another franchise quarterback in Jordan Love. The Bears are hoping that this is finally the guy that will take them over the top in Caleb Williams because he has to be at least a million times better than Jim McMahon and Jay Cutler, and they have a team that's supposed to make the playoffs, but they have a lot of questions they need to answer. And the Vikings are still a very talented team. They're well coached, but they have a new quarterback that they are starting as well. Will J.J. McCarthy live up to the expectations, or is he going to end up having a worse season than Sam Darnold, which is pretty hard to do if you ask me. So the way that we're going to start this is we're going to do a 2-minute drill for each of the teams, and then we're going to get into some talking points. And at the end, we're going to predict who we think is going to win, who's going to come in second, who's going to come in third, and who's going to come in last. There's a lot to get into, so I think to start up the 2-minute drills, we should honestly do the Detroit Lions. So I got the timer right here. And if I end up going over it, I'll try to wrap it up as quickly as possible. So really, when we do 2-minute drills, we just look at the rosters. We look what they did right. We look at some of the guys that they lost. And essentially, it just comes down to, are they going to be good or bad this year? That's pretty much the gist. Not to really go on too long, but I think with the Detroit Lions, I think there is definitely a lot to get into. So let me just start the timer here, and we'll be good to go. So last year was certainly the best season that they have had in the over 30 years. They won their division. They won a playoff game, which is something that they haven't been able to do. Even in the Matthew Stafford era, they went to the conference championship game, and after a 24-7 lead against the San Francisco 49ers, it looked like they were finally going to make it to the Super Bowl, and who knows, maybe knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. But obviously, they let that go. They completely had their hearts crushed, and now it's all about revenge. And one of the things that I love that they did offseason was they were able to bring back a lot of their core guys back, specifically on the offensive side. Ben Johnson didn't get a head coaching job. You're keeping him on as offensive coordinator. Jared Goff got a huge contract. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You still have Sam Laporta and Jameson Williams and the outstanding running back tandem of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And more importantly, your offensive line, even with Jonah Jackson leaving, is still one of the best in football. So the reason why they're going to make it back to the playoffs and most likely win their division is going to be that side of the ball. Unfortunately, the defense is once again going to be the weak link because Aiden Hutchinson was really the only reason why they had some sort of pass rush. The run defense took a huge step up because of, stars like Alexander Deloney and Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes. So, and I think they gave up the second fewest rushing yards in the league, so that was a huge improvement. But their secondary was, once again, just a travesty. Even with C.J. Gardner-Johnson and, some opportunistic playmakers like Jerry Jacobs and Kirby Joseph, it still gave up a ton of yards. It gave up way too many points. But now that Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph have a chance to step up, as well as rookie Terrion Arnold and Ifeatu Melifonwu, I think that they could still be opportunistic, but they really have to get it together or else they're never going to be able to get over the hump. So they're under a lot more pressure than they have been in who knows how long. And I think that they have a chance to get back to the NFC Championship, but it really just comes down to A, the defense stepping up, B, the offense making sure that it doesn't take a step back, and C, Dan Campbell making sure that they don't look ahead. So I think once they realize that, everybody's going to be trying to come for them and trying to make sure that they're taking away their best strengths and that the Lions have to be ready for it, then I think they'll have what it takes. It's all about grit, and it's all about a tough mindset. And I went over, so I'm sorry about that.
I mean, I think you pretty much nailed that. They're really in a position they've never been in before as a franchise because they kind of have never been like the dogs in the NFC North. It's always been the Packers or a few years with the Vikings, in the late 1900s, in the 90s and the 80s. So they've really never been in a position like this, and it's kind of cool to see.
Right.
Even the Bears in the 80s, they had that sort of like where they were the dogs in the NFC North, and people were looking up to them. So there's really never been a point in their franchise history where they've been like this. So it's kind of cool to see that. But yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of guys that need to step up on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll get into that. But this team is known for. I mean, this specific team is known for their offense, and that's where they're going to get their wins on that side of the ball. So, which isn't a bad thing. It's obviously a good thing, but
of course.
So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. Where do you think Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown rank amongst their respective positions? Because they're definitely one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the league. You could say they're top 5, arguably. But where do you think they rank individually?
Individually? I mean, I think Goff's probably in that, Kirk Cousins tier, like the 12 to 15 range, I think. Good quarterback can win you games, but is he you're not? I mean, you can win because of him. He'll put you on his back for some games, but really he can't. He's not a Mahomes, Allen, Burrow.
He needs a team around him to do well.
He needs a team around him. Where those guys, they can win with kind of subpar supporting cast. Goff really. I mean, there's only 5 people on the planet that can do that, so it's not anything. It's not a slight against him, really, because he's just
no.
But
of course not.
I'd say definitely. He's definitely, definitely a little above average. I think he's definitely in that Kirk Cousins tier, which is a good quarterback that can win you games. Amon-Ra, though, I think you can definitely make an argument for top 5. He's 100% top 10.
100.
But you can certainly make an argument for top 5. I'd need to go through all the other receivers, but if you were to say he's a top 5 receiver, I wouldn't necessarily argue that.
I mean, let's see. There's Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, and it's no order.
No.
Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae.
Honestly, I feel like Amon-Ra gives Jamar Chase and Devontae at this point a run for their money. So you could even say, outside of Jefferson and Tyreek, there is an argument for Amon-Ra to be number 3. There's an argument. I'm not saying he is, but
right.
You're not.
No, I agree.
To say he's number 3. So he is he's one of the best receivers in the league. I think that's very easily a statement. So.
I honestly could say, I feel like. I mean, there are other awesome veterans like Keenan Allen, Mike Evans.
Amon-Ra is way better than them at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just saying, there's so many awesome receivers in this league. I mean, there's literally a Netflix series explaining it. But 100%. I think Amon-Ra is definitely top 5, and I wouldn't hate you if you said he was number 3, just because, I mean, he's got the route running of Justin Jefferson. He's got, the catch radius and the type of strength that a guy like Jamar Chase has. So he's got the total package of a number 1 option, and really it's just he's got that dog in him. He's got, anytime he's on the field, he lets you know that, you try to get him one-on-one with the defender, it's not going to go well most of the time. So I agree with him. And I also think Jared Goff is like in the top 15. I'd probably say around, I don't have the list in front of me, but I would probably say maybe like 11 or 12. 11 or 12 I'd put him in, just because you could win games because of him. You could also lose games because of him.
Yeah.
But we've seen over his career that if you don't have the right team around him, if you don't have the right coach and the right personnel, he's not going to do well. And that's the same case with every quarterback. I'm not saying that, Jared Goff is like completely out of the mold, but it's just the fact that if you don't have like a top tier offensive line or a top tier supporting cast, then he can definitely fold, pretty easily, because we've seen that in his rookie year. We saw that in 2020. And now, I mean, I think he's still playing at an extremely high level, and he deserved to get his contract extension. But I think that there's a long way to go where it comes to, leading a team to a championship. And that's what this year really is all about. So I think we can segue into the next question. I already talked about what the biggest factor was in my 2-minute drill. I think we both agree it's the defense, since it's pretty much that every single year, unless you have something different in mind.
No, I had 2 things here. One of them was the defense, more importantly the secondary, because I think the defensive line and the pass rush can kind of hold their own, and the linebackers, which I'll get to in a later topic. But I think the big thing's the secondary, but also I think just consistent play from Goff, which we kind of just alluded to. But if I'd choose one, I'd probably say the secondary, because you need guys to step up. I think it's just watching the games. You watch the tape from last year. Like, obviously the secondary definitely got burnt a lot, and it wasn't even just burnt. Like, they were letting like quarterbacks and obviously great receivers. Like Justin Jefferson had like days against the Lions. So, and he had his whole career really, but it's been kind of the whole Dan Campbell era. Their cornerbacks haven't been too hot. So I think this is kind of just has to be a transition to where they kind of go away from that mold. Otherwise, it's going to be like the Lions just can't figure out their secondary. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
No argument there. A couple more questions, and then we'll get to the Packers. Who do you think is poised for a breakout season? And also, who do you think needs to step up the most to really make a name for themselves?
Yeah, so I think for the breakout, I alluded to this, the linebackers. I think Jack Campbell's going to his rookie year was good, but, I think he can really take that next step in this defense to be, like, the guy on this defense, like that, the quarterback of the defense. Because usually you have that middle linebacker that is, like, essentially, like, you get, like, the Luke Kuechly, I'm trying to think of the Fred Warners, who are literally the quarterback of your defense. They are the ones talking. They're basically essentially breaking the huddle. I think Jack Campbell can be that guy. He's a great tackler. I think if he can be great in coverage, I think that this could be huge for that defense, especially when they're really struggling on the back end to kind of, be that dog linebacker. So I think that would be definitely my pick for breakout. There's definitely plenty more, but I think that one's huge, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
That's fair. I'm going to go with Jameson Williams, because this is the first time that he's going to be able to play a full season. And more importantly, Dan Campbell said himself, he is going to be a more featured player in this offense. I think that Josh Reynolds leaving in free agency definitely opens that window a lot. And because we already know Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the top 5 wideouts in the game. And Sam Laporta is just set up to have a 1,000-yard season and establish himself as one of the 5 or 10 best tight ends to play in the game. So I think for Jameson Williams, he's got, incredible speed. He definitely has a lot to show when it comes to his route running. And I think, I feel like the more snaps he'll play, the more of a game changer that he will be, because it's going to open up a lot more opportunities for the rest of the pass catching options and even the running backs in this offense. So really, I would have to say Jameson Williams, just because, like I said, you didn't really get a chance to play in your rookie year. You were recovering from that injury, and then you were suspended earlier in the beginning of last season. So now there's really no excuses here. This is the chance for him to shine.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. I think he has to take a key. This is a make or break it year for him, I think.
Yeah. All right. One last question. What was the biggest W and L of the offseason? I'll do the L, and you can take the biggest win. What do you think it was?
I think the W is probably keeping Ben Johnson, right? It has to be. I mean, he was ever since he's been in the building since 2022, right? Like, their offense really hasn't been the problem. I mean, obviously that first stretch of 2022 was ugly, but it was ugly on both sides of the ball. So I think keeping him, especially with the season, the Lions' offense just consistently humming, like, you didn't want to lose him to a head coaching job. So I'd probably go with that.
Yeah. I don't think the Lions had a bad offseason at all because, like you said, they were able to keep not just Ben Johnson, but the whole core on their offense. So I agree with that. I think the biggest L, though, was really just not investing in the D-line. I understand that they improved their secondary by getting Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson and drafting Terry Arnold, and obviously still have Brian Branch, but it feels like this pass rush is just going to be Aiden Hutchinson or bust once again because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Ali McNeil. I like that they signed DJ Reader. You needed some guys that's going to even – I don't think the run defense is going to be the issue, but it's just really it comes down to James Houston recovering from that injury, John Kaminsky and Ali McNeil showing that they can have an impact to the pass rush, and more importantly, it's just Marcus Davenport was like the one notable free agent signing who's – pretty good, but he's
fine.
He's okay, but he's just not like a first-round pick, which is what he was drafted to be. So really, I just don't know how much better their defensive line is going to be. And I'm not saying Aiden Hutchinson's going to be terrible. I'm just saying that the rest of the guys really need to help him out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right, TJ, you're up with the Green Bay Packers. I can't wait for this one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold up. Before you do that, let me get the clock. Sorry about that.
Gotta stay honest here. Honest here.
All right, go for it.
So I think with the Packers, right? Like, really, no one really knew what they were going to be last season because of the uncertainties they had, and they kind of proved to everyone, like, yeah, we're just like a dominant franchise, and we win under any circumstance. Like, that's the standard. A winning season is the standard there. No matter what, like they had a lot of injuries last year and a lot of stuff happened. So it's like, okay, but when you have the head coach quarterback combo, you're set to win. They have that with Matt LaFleur, one of the best head coaches in football. Jordan Love, sensational last year outside of like a 3-game stretch. Started the year out well, and then like October is a bad month, and then ever since then he killed it. So they have their franchise quarterback. Sucks for the rest of the NFC North that they're going to have another quarterback that dominates the rest of the league. Lost in the divisional round to San Francisco. They kept it close, though, so it's definitely a sign that, of things to come. And the Niners were just a vastly superior team, so that the fact they were even in it was crazy. They had a really good offseason, or a very active offseason, I feel like. I think, adding Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs are – I'll get into the Josh Jacobs one. I like the Xavier McKinney one. They definitely overpaid there, but he's a really dominant safety. So, and you have that luxury to pay for a position like that when you're a championship contender. So, I like that signing, and I don't hate the Jacobs one. It's just I'll get into it. But they drafted Jordan Morgan in the first round. Really like that. They needed the tackle after David Bakhtiari left, so that was huge. And I think that kind of sums everything up. I really love their draft. So I think that's really going to be, if it doesn't pay off this year, it's going to pay off in the next few years where they really showed that they can, show that they drafted well. So I like what they did this offseason.
Yeah, I did too. Definitely thought the Jacobs contract was risky, giving him $48 million for 4 years. But I love the Xavier McKinney one. And yeah, you can say it was definitely an overpayment, but that's what free agency is all about, and that's what free agents do. They're going to the places that are going to give them the most money. And if I'm in that situation, I'd be doing the same damn thing because I mean, you got families and to look out for and to provide for. So I'm not even going to question that whatsoever. I also love what they did with their defense. You know, they drafted Javon Bullard and Edgerrin Cooper, and obviously they got Jordan Morgan for that David Bakhtiari replacement. You know the offense is going to stay consistent because Jordan Love just completely shined last year. And the defense, now that Joe Barry's gone, maybe it could actually, take a big step up now that Jeff Hafley is going to take control of that secondary. And that was definitely a big weakness last year. So definitely love what they did this offseason. And, I think Jordan Love is going to absolutely thrive this season. I saw in First Take that they had Jordan Love as like a dark horse MVP candidate. And I think he definitely can be in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into like my whole analysis there because I think TJ pretty much hit it right on the button. Let me ask you this. Does Jordan Love deserve to be in the top 10 after one season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that kind of says yes, and he was amazing. I think it kind of goes two reasons why. Obviously, he played amazing, and I also think there's just like a shortage of quarterbacks right now. Like we don't have a lot of great quarterbacks in this league, so he kind of just naturally gets bumped up there. Or we have at the top end, there's good ones, but there's not really like that. Like there's the 5 like guys, like okay, they're great, and then it's a major fall off. So it's like, I think naturally he gets in the top 10, obviously, but I think just his play kind of demanded that. I mean, he was super, efficient last year. Didn't turn the ball over that much, and when he did, it wasn't necessarily his own fault, really. A lot of those interceptions, but I think you look at the pure arm talent, the ability to improvise. Like he's up there with Mahomes and those types of abilities. So I mean, Mahomes, Allen, you name it. I mean, so I think just off last season, I think he deserves to be in that combo. Just because, and plus he's young too, so it's like you already know he is going to have so much room to grow. So, yes, I would say Jordan Love is definitely a top 10 quarterback at this point in time.
Yep, they literally did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers in 2005. They draft him in the first round. They have him sit back and learn from a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And once he took over, he was ready to shine. And sure enough, 4 MVPs at a Super Bowl championship later, he is going to make a name for himself too. And Jordan Love is on track to do that because when you learn from one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, when you sit back and learn and develop, through the first few years of your career, it's going to most likely pay off when you actually have that chance to start. And that might not be the case with all quarterbacks, but with Jordan Love, you knew the talent was there. You just needed to make sure that you unlocked that potential. And it took a slow start last year, but it ended up being so worth it, especially when the playoffs arrived and they dismantled the Cowboys. So he definitely deserves to be in the top 10. But I also want to throw this out because I think the Packers are the biggest threat to the Detroit Lions when it comes to winning the NFC North. Let me put it this way. The Packers can steal the NFC North from the Lions if – finish the sentence.
I think with them, it's all about the defense, right? Like, obviously health, but you could say that for every team. But with the Packers, I think it's just like, does this defense get better? With losing Joe Barry, I mean, that's pretty much addition by subtraction, you'd think. But it actually does have to improve. You think Xavier, but that's the thing. Like, it's not like they sure, Xavier McKinney will make an impact, but that's not like the difference between like in a good defense versus an elite defense, right? Like, he's gonna be a good player for them, but they need guys to be in the right scheme, guys to be in the right places. It's all about schematics for them because they have the players, they have the talent. It's just a matter of can they actually be in a position to be a great defense? And I think they have the talent. It's just a matter of guys being in the right position to do that. So yeah, I think it all revolves around the defense if the Packers want to win the NFC North. So
exactly, and I'm not really concerned with their safety room because you have McKinney, you drafted Javon Bullard, you have guys that have a chance to. You have the safeties there, but who's going to help out Jair Alexander in the corner room? I mean, Eric Stokes has been disappointing. Keyshawn Nixon was pretty good. And, you had some low depth chart guys like really rising up because of some of the injuries that they were dealing with. But, I mean, it's just there's a lot of upside to build on, and I think Jeff Hafley knows how to do that, but you're getting two things. Last year, Boston College, which is the program he was the head coach for, they were one of the worst. They had one of the worst scoring defenses in the ACC, and now he's heading back to the NFL to take over a defense that has also been struggling over the last 2 to 3 seasons. So he has his work cut out for him. The front seven is rock solid. Like, Rashawn Gary is a beast. Lucas Van Ness is ready to step up in his second year. You still have Kenny Clark and Preston Smith and Devontae Wyatt. The linebacker room, you got Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker. That's going to be pretty solid. It's just the passing game. And I think if they can focus on, like, if they could step up and if they could really exceed expectations, then they could definitely steal this division. And really, it's the same could be said vice versa for the Lions and for them to hold on. But let me ask you this. Who do you think needs to step up the most? It could be on the defensive side. It could be on the offensive side. Literally anybody.
This one's kind of easy for me because you just mentioned him too. I think it has to be Quay Walker, right? Like, he was a first-round pick, man. He has to be, like, he's been bad, man. Like, he's got to step it up, I think, in order for because again, I know linebacker isn't the most important position on defense, but, like, if you're, like, a liability, that's when it becomes like when you're like, okay, like, are we going to keep, because you're a first round pick, like, teams don't want to move off that in the first 2 seasons, but he has been bad. So they need to, like, either figure out, is he the answer, or, like, drafting linebacker in the second round. That's perfect. You find out if he's not the guy, you either have someone next to him or someone who's going to be his replacement. So I think with
I don't know if he's been terrible. I mean, he had over 120 tackles.
It's been rough. He has been really not great in coverage. I think that's been the big thing with Quay Walker. Like, and a big part of why their defense has been really not great over the last, 2 years, or at least last year. Obviously, there's more factors that go into it, but Quay Walker definitely has to step it up. I'm kind of, going off his draft billing too. Like, they took him to be one of these, like, they took him to be the next, like, Clay Matthews. I know they're a little different the way they play, but, like, he has been, he's got to step it up if he wants to stay on the team, really, I think.
I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs because 2 years ago, he led the league in rushing. He was healthy for pretty much the entire season, unless I'm mistaken. But he still led the league in rushing. And the next year, he went back to what he was in the first 2 years. Showed a lot of flashes, showed signs that he could be a legitimate starting running back, but he would either miss games or he'd have performances where he never really gave it his best. So I think now that they gave him a pretty big contract that has a 4-year deal on it, I think that Josh Jacobs really needs to show why, the Packers made such a big investment, and a smart one, to be quite honest with you. Because when Josh Jacobs brings his A game, there's no stopping him, if you ask me. He has the ability to break through the tackles. He's got the talent. He's got pretty good speed. And I think that, listen, 2 years ago, he was one of the top 5 running backs in all of football. And the next year, we never really saw that. Maybe it was because of, Josh McDaniels leaving, or because of the fact that, he was still just clouding over that offense. But still, now that you're in a Sean McVay-like offense with Matt LaFleur, now that you got Jordan Love, and now that you have promising pieces that could definitely get you back to the playoffs, it's up to Jacobs to let you know that, okay, I'm a huge reason why this offense is going to turn the next page here and why we're even going to go higher and not just stay flat.
Yeah. No, I like that one too. He's got to pick it up.
What do you think is the biggest L of the offseason? I think the biggest W was signing Xavier McKinney because he's just, very well, he's just an instant playmaker. He's extremely versatile. He can play any position on the field. He's incredible at shutting down the run. He's exceptional in coverage. He's a pretty good ball hawk. And I think his energy and juice is exactly what the Packers defense needs. But what do you think the biggest mistake that the Packers made this offseason?
I don't
Even though there weren't many.
They made a mistake or an L. I think the one that you have to keep your eye on is the Josh Jacobs one, right? Like, I still don't really understand the point of letting Aaron Jones go and then getting Jacobs.
Yeah.
I think that kind of is like, I mean, it's not a bad move, but like, really, what's the point? I know he's younger, but like, I don't think he's better than. I mean, he had 1 year where he was, but Aaron Jones has proven to be the more consistent back, and I think Aaron Jones. I'm not gonna. Aaron Jones might be better out of the pass game. I think he is actually. Now I think about it, but again,
he definitely is. At least to me, he is.
Yeah. So I feel like. I don't know. I kind of get it, but like at the same time, it's like sort of just like. I felt like it was kind of. It's not really moving the needle. Aaron Jones versus Josh Jacobs to me. At least this season, maybe long term, maybe, but Josh Jacobs coming off of a very rough season, so it's like, and obviously not all of it his fault. So I'm not gonna say that, but like. It wasn't, wasn't pretty.
I'm with it.
It wasn't pretty for all the Raiders, to be completely honest. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I wouldn't say letting Aaron Jones walk was the biggest L. And neither of us are saying that. I would probably, they didn't make too many big L's. I think like the closest one was, I mean, I don't know, taking Jordan Morgan. I don't know. I mean, Jordan Morgan was a solid need, but it's just like
Jordan Morgan pick. I think that's
gonna. I liked it too. So it's like the Packers don't mess up too much when it comes to the offseason. Well, with the exception of that Aaron Rodgers debacle that happened like a while back, but even then, it's just like whatever. Like it pretty much went away naturally. That's for sure.
Once you win, it goes away. So it's like
Yeah.
So you can say for that.
Yep. I agree with that. Okay, now let's go to the Minnesota Vikings, which is honestly they're talented enough to make the playoffs, but they definitely have a lot of question marks that they need to answer as well. So let me get that timer set up, and here we go. All right, so last year, obviously Kirk Cousins gets hurt, but even when he was healthy, I think we knew that they weren't going to have another 13-win season. And earlier in the year, they were turning the ball over a lot. And after a year where they were winning a lot of close ball games, they found themselves on the opposite side. But then once Cousins got hurt, unfortunately, the writing was pretty much on the wall. Even with the 6-4 start, the quarterback situation got exposed. And really, that ended up being their biggest need because they have so much talent on both sides of the ball. But if you don't have that guy at that position, then you're not going to get anywhere far. I like that they drafted J.J. McCarthy. I think he's in the perfect situation, sitting behind a veteran, albeit Sam Darnold, but still, you're not throwing J.J. McCarthy into the fire. And I don't think you really need to, because the fact of the matter is, I think this offense is talented enough to still at least help the Vikings get over the top. You bring in Aaron Jones to bring in some semblance of a run game, and you don't have to worry about Alexander Madison being your number one option. You have the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison thrived in his rookie year. Hopefully TJ Hawkinson could come back healthy. So the supporting cast is there. And even though the offensive line gives up too many hits and pressures, I still think that no matter who the quarterback is, as long as they don't screw up, they're going to make sure that this offense stays on the right track, and the whole team itself. Defensively, I think it's a huge X factor with Brian Flores, because even though Brian Flores is their defensive coordinator, how are you going to do without Danielle Hunter? I know that you signed Jonathan Grenard, you signed Andrew Van Ginkel, you traded up to get Dallas Turner, so you have more guys that can attack the pocket and create a better rush. But you have a lot of guys that really need to prove that they're instant game changers. And especially the secondary has to really, really show up, because Harrison Smith is not getting any younger. You have Cameron Bynum and Byron Murphy who show flashes but never really prove that they're lockdown defenders. And I really hope that Josh Metellus and Ivan Pace can even do better, because I saw a lot of promise from them towards the second stretch of the season, and I think that if they get quality starting minutes, then it's going to be pretty interesting to watch. I feel like it can play well enough when they're ahead, but if you fall behind and an inexperienced offense or an inexperienced quarterback has to really carry them to victory, then I don't think it's going to pan out that well. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll really just depend on when J.J. McCarthy is going to get his first start. I'm not going to be surprised if they get off to that slow of a start because, again, it's Sam Darnold starting. But honestly, I don't expect him to have a terrible season at all. I think with that much talent, you should win at least 6 or 7 games, in my opinion. So it's really more an evaluative year than anything, but just comes down to the quarterback.
I think one thing to note with the Vikings, I'm pulled up right now. Their schedule, at least the first part of the schedule, is brutal. It is. Okay, so they start in New York, then they play the Niners, the Texans, the Packers, the Jets, the Lions, the Rams.
Yeah,
that's weeks.
That
2,
is brutal.
4, 5, 6, 7, and they play the Colts. So, and I don't know how good the Colts are going to be, but at least the weeks 2 through 6 or 2 through 7, Niners, right. Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, Rams, like
all playoff teams. Well, except for the Jets, but again, Aaron Rodgers,
and probably a healthy Aaron Rodgers because early in the season. So it's like, man, that's all I'm gonna say really for that. That's where I could kind of see it because like if you lose all those games, you're 0-7, and then the season's over, right? Like, so
essentially.
I think that's one thing to keep in mind with the Vikings. The schedule makers did not do them any favors, but I agree with everything you said.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what do you make of the quarterback situation? Because J.J. McCarthy has promise, and Sam Darnold could be a good bridge guy since, you have a hell of a coach and a strong offense around you. But what do you what's your best opinion on it?
Yeah, I think so there's two things with JJ. I think with JJ, I think he needs to sit for at least half a season. And honestly, they get through that first 7-game stretch I just mentioned, then you start him, right? But I really do think, he reminds me so much of CJ Stroud. So at that point, you're kind of like,
really?
Well, just the way they play. I'm not saying he's going to be, but they play the very similar way. I think JJ's a little bit better of a, I'm not even going to say he's a better athlete because CJ's very athletic in the pocket, but JJ can run faster, which doesn't really mean much, obviously, but they play very similar with their ability to move around in the pocket, kind of be they have good deep balls, but they're not necessarily always looking for the deep ball. They're more of just a very good in the pocket, and I don't know. I see a lot of similarities there. But yeah, I would probably sit him, maybe just because of that early stretch in the schedule. But I can understand why they would start him, and plus he's just a super raw talent. So I like bringing in Darnold. I think. I feel like with Darnold, he's not good, but I feel like there's this common consensus that he's Zach Wilson bad. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think if he comes in and you just be hey, just don't turn the ball over, you could stay in some games. But again, looking at this schedule, you can't just have a guy that just doesn't turn the ball over. You need to have a guy that doesn't turn the ball over, but also by himself can win some games because. The Lions, the Rams, the Niners, good luck with just a guy that kind of plays within a system. So I think it's tough. I think with Kirk Cousins, you maybe win a few of those games, but again, they're looking towards the future. They're not necessarily looking at this year. So I don't think it's the worst quarterback situation in the league, obviously, because they have a rookie, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on, especially with O'Connell. So
what about this defense? Because I already brought up that they lost to Danielle Hunter, but they still made moves to improve the pass rush, and you're hoping that the secondary turns a corner. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's tough. It's a tough evaluation. I think the front seven has a lot of upside. The secondaries where it's kind of similar to the Lions, not as talented, obviously, but it's very similar to the Lions. In that there's front seven's good, but the secondary is, could be a liability. I think they have the upside to be, a top half unit. I don't see it being a top 10 unit just because I think the talent isn't there. But they have guys like Grenard, Dallas Turner, and Ivan Pace, who I think could, and Metellus, who's a good role player. I think those guys could all be really solid for them and really contribute. But the strength of this team is going to be that receiver core and obviously the running back and left tackle. They have all the offensive positions, so if their quarterback balls out, they're going to have a good offense. But I don't really see this defense being. I think it'd be formidable. Like I think it could be a solid unit and keep them in games. But like it's not going to be their call to act. Their call to action like the Jets or like the Cowboys, like teams that are like known for their defense. So I think that's where I'd leave it on the Vikings. Could be good, but I don't really expect it's not going to be the worst. But I don't expect it to be like top 10 unit.
Right. Exactly. I'm really hoping that they elevate themselves to a top 15 unit, but at the same time, you need a lot of things to go right for them. So I don't disagree with you about that. I think we talked about the guys that need to step up the most. Obviously, we talked about some of the guys on the defensive side. Really, it really just comes down to quarterback. And I'm not going to say that they're going to regret not giving Kirk Cousins another contract because it's like he's coming off a torn Achilles, and I think he's giving you enough of a sample size to show you that he's not going to lead you to a championship. He can help you win games, but I think he's not going to win you the games that you need to win the most. But
yeah,
what do you think the best move they made this offseason was?
I mean, probably extending Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
I think that has to be the big move. I mean, he is. We talked about it on when he did the episode where he did. They did extend him, and I think, he is like a Hall of Fame talent. Like he is on track. He plays 5 more years, he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. So, I think, and that the Vikings are just notorious for having their elite Hall of Fame wide receivers. So I think it has to be extending JJ because you don't want to risk, the price going up for him or him just being like, nope, I'm angry, I'm leaving in free agency or I'm demanding a trade. So they got that locked in, and now JJ McCarthy / Sam Darnold has a huge weapon. And I think with him, he is a big receiver, but he plays big. So it's good to have him.
Yeah. I think that they're going to regret letting Danielle Hunter walk. And that's not saying that the guys on their pass rush can't play. Because I love Grenard. I think Ginkle really had I wouldn't say a breakout season, but he really had a pretty solid season last year. And I really hope that Dallas Turner really pans out because I thought he was the best defensive player coming out of the draft. And I think the Vikings just stole him when he landed into their laps. But I think without Danielle Hunter, he showed you that when he's healthy, he is a game changer. And I think if you added him to this defensive line, then we'd have a way better opinion on this defensive side of the ball. So that's what I would say. But we've reached to the Chicago Bears, probably the team that's going to be under the most. I want to say under the most pressure, but they are getting probably the most hype out of all 4 of these teams when it comes to their offseason. So let me get the clock, and once I do that, I'll let you go.
I mean, so obviously, right? The main big ticket item is getting Caleb Williams. I mean, that is huge. You get your franchise quarterback. I think just getting Caleb, Adunze, and Keenan Allen alone gives them an extra 1 to 2 wins because that is just a haul. Just those 2 picks alone is an A+ draft. But they also, they added Keenan Allen. So, you get a top 10 receiver, and now you have 2 top 10 receivers on your team, or at least top 12 to 15, right? Like, really good receivers. And then you have the offensive line in place, the solid offensive line. So this offense has potential to be one of the best in the league this year if Caleb comes out and has a really phenomenal rookie season, which is definitely possible. They added DeAndre Swift. I mean, he's a good player. I don't really think, that does much, but it really adds to that running back room. So now you have Swift, Herbert, Roshan, like that. Those are 3 really solid running backs. So like their running back room. The defense is an interesting one. They added obviously Montez Sweat last year in that trade. Again, not like an elite pass rusher, but he's still really, really good. So that's huge for their defense. I mean, this defense's best player is obviously Jalen Johnson. Just lockdown cornerback. I'd say probably a top 3 to 5 cornerback in the league. But they've got pieces in the secondary that need to step up, but that have shown promise. I mean, you've got Tyreek Stevenson, who had a pretty good season last year. It wasn't anything special, but definitely showed that he has promise. Jaquan Brisker, again, guy that kind of needs to step it up, but like has shown flashes of being really promising. And Kyler Gordon, all these guys are like young but have room for improvement. The defensive line is probably the big, outside of Sweat, who's more of like he does play end, but he could probably play offside linebacker too. But I feel like the interior of the defensive line is going to be their main point that you need to see growth from. Especially, the secondary you should see growth from, but the defensive line, you need to see some guys just like step up in general. So, yeah, I really think this team is poised to show some promise here.
Yeah. First off, I want to get to your point about Tyreek Stevenson. I thought he had an outstanding rookie season. I mean, he led all rookies in passes defended and interceptions. He had 16 passes defended, 4 picks. And you pair him with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon, that is a pretty scary corner room to work with. And that's if Kyler Gordon really develops into a solid player. Because we know what Jalen Johnson could do. He got a contract extension for a reason. But Tyreek Stevenson has the potential to be a freaking beast.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I agree with you about the defensive line, because outside of Montez Sweat, who's really going to generate enough pressure, but you also have an outstanding linebacker duo. You got playmakers in your secondary, and I think your D-line is a big issue. And I'm really hoping that this offense really, really breaks out, because Caleb Williams is going to be under a huge microscope, and I don't think the offensive line is going to be the scapegoat this time around, because you could say, well, it was bad with Justin Fields. What do you think it's going to be like with Caleb Williams? Well, this is why they decided to move on from Justin Fields, because Caleb Williams was supposed to, quote-unquote, I wouldn't say completely camouflage them, but make them not look like weaknesses with your team. So
I think one thing that I will be 100% certain of is this offense will 100% be better. I think one thing I will guarantee in the NFL this season is that Caleb.
Oh, I agree.
Justin Fields. I just think it's because he's just, again, Caleb Williams is better than a lot of other quarterbacks, but it's nothing against Justin Fields. It's just I think it's going to look so much different. So.
I think it will too, because Caleb Williams is more aggressive than Justin Fields. And I think that now that they got Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, you literally have 3 number 1 options on the same team. And we'll get into that in just a bit. But who do you think is going to be under more pressure this season? Caleb Williams or Matt Eberflus?
I think it's Eberflus, right? Third-year head coach versus a rookie. I think even if Caleb stinks up the joint, you're not going to be like, oh, we got to move off Caleb. If the team looks bad and it's undisciplined, Eberflus is getting canned. So, I think that one is, at least for me, I think that one is easier just because of how, I see the Bears. But if you're not a Caleb fan, then, yeah, obviously it's going to be Caleb. So it's really how you interpret it. I'm a fan of both, honestly. I like Eberflus and I obviously love Caleb. But I'd go Eberflus, man. I think year 3, something's got to give, especially with all this talent you have on the offensive side of the ball.
I think it's Eberflus too, because we know what a smart defensive mind he can be. It's all about your ability to lead and your ability to inspire your team, because I think – the first year you win 3 games, the second year you win 7. If you don't improve and end up looking worse, remember, at the start of last year, they were looking like one of the worst teams in the league, not just because of what they were on the field, but some of the things that were taking place off of it too, which we don't really need to get into. But this is a chance for Matt Eberflus to shut the notion down that, I am a hell of a head coach. I know what it takes to be in this type of position, and I know that the team will respond to me. I think that the defense, if it plays the way that it did towards the second half of last year, then they are going to be a scary team to watch. We already know what the offense can be like with Caleb Williams, but that's going to be his biggest priority, is making sure that that defense doesn't have any more setbacks or, downward spirals along the way. So really, it's your ability to lead, and it's your ability to motivate. And you don't have to be the loudest guy in the room, but you have to prove what it takes to have your guys get on your back, so that way you can actually climb that mountain.
Yeah.
So we already talked about the receivers with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen. Who do you think should be the number one option on this team because you got three of them, but only one of them is going to get the most targets and catches.
I think who should be, I think it should still be DJ Moore. Who's man, it's a tough one. I think if you look at the overall Bears receiver room outlook over the next 2 to 3 years, I think DJ is going to be the 1. Keenan's going to be the 2 for maybe 1 to 2 more years. I actually don't know how much he has left on his contract, but he's going to be it for for at least this year. And then Odunze will take over that spot. So I think Odunze is really the Keenan Allen replacement, but he'll play as the 3. It's very similar to Seattle's situation that they had last year when they drafted Jackson Smith. And then he was kind of the 3, but eventually you got to assume he's going to take over for Tyler. So, yeah, I kind of like where the receiver room's at, and I think it can make a huge impact this year. And it's huge for a rookie quarterback. DJ Moore, Justin Fields already had a DJ Moore last year, but before that, Justin Fields didn't have a guy like any of these 3. So they're really doing right by their number 1 overall pick. So I think for now it'll be DJ Moore as the 1, Keenan as the 2, and then obviously Odunze as the 3, who will eventually take over Keenan as the 2.
Yeah.
Unless Odunze has this crazy Justin Jefferson type rookie season, then you move him to the 1. So I think
probably. I was thinking that it should be Rome Odunze, but then if you look at the Seahawks last year, you had Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And JSN was not really the number 1 option on that team. So there's a big chance that Rome Odunze, could be in that similar role. I'm not going to say exactly because I think he's going to get a lot more targets and a lot of catches than JSN did in his rookie season. But the point is, it's going to take a while for him to really get his huge opportunity. And I think when it does, he's going to take advantage of it. This one's really tough, too, because, we all know what Keenan Allen could do. I think he has a case to make him – I think he has the resume to make himself a Hall of Famer. And DJ Moore has proven that it doesn't matter which quarterback you have, he's the number 1 option, and he can have a consistent impact on your offense. I would say – it's really tough. I'll go with your point. I'll say it's probably DJ Moore just for the simple fact that – he's had more experience with this team. And I think that even though a new offensive coordinator is going to be in place, I think that, they traded for DJ Moore for a reason because they thought he was going to be the difference maker for Justin Fields. And I feel like if he could do the same for Caleb Williams, then it'll be a home run. But I want to say Rome Odunze, but I think I agree with you. It'll be DJ Moore. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's Keenan Allen either because we all know that he's going to want the ball. So it's definitely.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's gonna be DJ just because he is. I think he naturally is the number 1. But I would not be surprised. I'd be surprised if it was Rome just because he's young and there's never been a scenario that's happened with all these mouths to feed, especially with Swift. You can pass him out of the backfield, so it's they have options. So it's and then he's met too.
Right.
It'd be very impressive if Odunze led the league or led the team in targets and receiving yards. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely still early to tell. I just wanted to throw that out there because, it gets you thinking. It's just nobody expected Justin Jefferson to pretty much usurp Adam Thielen when it was in his rookie season.
Yeah.
So that's always something to take into account. But I think we've wrapped up with all the teams here. I'm glad we got through them. Thank goodness. First one is in the books. Now we got 4 more questions that we got to ask. Which team has the best offense and which one has the best defense? I know that's 2, but that's just in one sentence.
Best offense? I think right now you have to say the Lions, but I think towards the end of the season it could be different. I think we could be saying, I don't know. It could be
saying anybody.
It could be really any of these teams, right? I think the Bears probably have the best chance to surpass them just with the talent they have. But, I assume you're asking right now, so I'll say the Lions. But I could easily see that changing if the Bears really put everything together, and Caleb has a phenomenal season. So
Yeah.
I'll go with the Lions for now, but I think the Bears are definitely a dark horse to be the best statistical offense in this division.
Yep. I agree with you. I think it's the Lions. I don't think there's any debate. As of right now, I mean, they've shown that, with time and with chemistry and with, as things get more natural for them, they just have gotten better and better. And like I said, Vikings need to show that they have a quarterback. Jordan Love is definitely trending upwards, but you need the rest of the guys to help him out as well. And the Bears, they were in the same situation last year, and they completely disappointed. So this is their chance to really make sure that this is really their season. For the best defense, I think it's the Bears, if you really ask me, because TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds were outstanding as a linebacker duo last year. They were one of the best run defenses in the league, and they literally played almost everywhere on the field, and they're still in the primes of their career. I know that their defensive line is not great, but I love their linebacking room. I love their secondary, and we all know Matt Eberflus. He does a really good job with the type of units that he wants to run, whether it's in Indianapolis or in Chicago. Like I already said, he knows what he's doing with his defense, and I think with the Vikings, you have a lot of younger guys that need to step up. The Packers have a new DC, and the Lions are literally in that same boat every single year where the defense is holding them back. So I would probably go with the Bears there.
Yeah, it's a tough one because none of these defenses are really like elites, at least not yet. But I'd probably go with the Packers just because I feel like their talent is the best. I mean, with Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney, Jair Alexander, like that's a really good defensive trio. And I think if you equate that to the Bears, theirs would probably be Sweat, TJ Edwards, and Jalen Johnson. So they have a good trio too, but kind of like that Packers one because Rashawn Gary, I've said this a lot. I think he's one of the most underrated players in all of football. And Xavier McKinney, really good player. So I think that's huge too. And then Jair, who had was kind of a down year last year, but still a really good corner. So I like the Packers, man. And then the Packers, I think it's the linebacker room they really have to worry about with them. But they drafted one. So if they can be kind of a better unit than they have been, I think it could be a good year defensively for them. But the Bears, obviously, if they have those guys step up, in the secondary and things like that, they'll be a good team. They'll be a good defense, too.
I'll ask this then. Who do you think, after Dan Campbell, is the best head coach in this division? Matt LaFleur or Kevin O'Connell? Because Eberflus has a lot to prove.
I don't think Dan Campbell is the best head coach in this division.
Whoa, really?
That's an argument? I thought it was Matt LaFleur. I think it's Matt LaFleur. Easily.
Ooh. Okay, now we got something here.
Wait, are you kidding?
I mean, listen, I know that Dan Campbell had a slow start, but I think in terms of the persona and the cachet and the fact that, obviously they came up really short of the NFC Championship, I could see why you said LaFleur, but at the same time, this is the first year that he showed that he could have a winning season without Aaron Rodgers. And with Dan Campbell, you just knew that the minute at his press conference, you know that he was going to be the guy that would help Detroit finally get over the top. And Matt LaFleur just took over a better situation.
Kinda. I mean, Matt LaFleur obviously had Rodgers, but it wasn't the rest of the team was amazing. Rodgers, Devontae, but their defense has always been I don't know. I think LaFleur is definitely the best head coach. And just the ability to just be have consistently. I mean, Jordan Love's amazing, obviously. Don't get me wrong, but LaFleur had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, but it's not the play calling sucked and Aaron Rodgers was getting over it, right? It was it's.
No, I understand that.
No. I know you're not saying. I'm just saying it's not LaFleur walked into a gifted situation, right? Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs, obviously. So he came in 2019. Aaron Rodgers, wasn't great in 2019, but still, had a not great for Aaron Rodgers, still really good for other quarterbacks. And then won 2 MVPs, and then down year in 21, obviously, but that was because Rodgers was kind of not really connecting with receivers. Or didn't have that chemistry. So I think LaFleur is definitely the best head coach in this division. If you had to ask me, I think Dan Campbell is a great head coach too. I just think LaFleur is maybe that's just because I just think LaFleur is underrated. That could be part of it too.
Well, I was going to say LaFleur after Dan Campbell for all the points that you just brought up, but it's like I never thought that this was going to be the one thing we disagree about. Just because, I mean, listen, Dan Campbell took over like one of the worst football programs in NFL history, and look where they are right now. I mean, literally, no one expected them to be at this point when the season started.
No, I mean, both of them are top 10 head coaches. I'm not going to, but I think LaFleur is like I think the only coaches I see really better than LaFleur, like definitively, are McVay, Reed,
Shanahan.
I'd say he's similar with Shanahan. I think I'd probably go Shanahan over him though, just because Shanahan is like with what he was able to do with Garoppolo is pretty insane.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go Reed, McVay, Shanahan. Who's like I can't think of anyone that I'd put before LaFleur.
Harbaugh, Tomlin.
Harbaugh, no, LaFleur's better than Tomlin by far. Harbaugh, probably similar. So, but yeah, I'd probably say he's a top 5 head coach, but I'd say Campbell's top 10. But like, this division has really good head coaches, though. At least
it does.
Campbell, O'Connell, LaFleur, and we crap on Eberflus, but there's worse head coaches out there. So it's like
that's for sure.
For head coaches, so it's definitely a tough one.
All right, I think we've came down to the real question that everybody wants to know. Who do we have winning this division? Who's second? Who's third? And who's fourth? I'll let you be the honor. I'll let you do the honors and be the first one.
Okay, so I was going through the schedule earlier, and I picked out some teams, and I think the Packers are going to win it. I really do. I think the Packers are going to win. I think they'll have
wow.
I mean, man, like, I think with them, they're the most complete team. They have the best quarterback in the division. I think they have the best head coach in the division. There's some questions at offensive line and what we're going to get their defense, but I think, the Packers won the division for all those years with Aaron Rodgers, and they have, again, the best quarterback in the division. So I think that's where you make your money. So I'm going to go with the Packers winning it. I think I had the Packers winning it last year too when we did our division preview. So I've been a Packers guy, but they're always always at least a good team. So it's like it's hard not to pick them for something.
Right.
So I'd probably go with the Packers, but not like by a landslide. I'm not saying that, but I think they'll get 10 to 12 wins.
Who's 2, 3, and 4?
So for 2, I think it's either the Lions or the Bears. I think they'll both fight for that wild card spot, I think, because I think both of them, I was looking at their schedule, I think they'll get probably 8 to 10 wins, both of them. I think the Lions probably get 9 or 10 wins, and then the Bears. So I'd go Lions at 2 with 10 wins. Or 9, 10 wins. And then the Bears 8 to 9 wins maybe. So the Lions and Bears are going to be neck and neck through the wild card for that wild card spot. And the Vikings, that start to that schedule, man, is so rough, and I just think it's going to be hard for them to claw back and stay competitive. They'll be competitive. I think they'll give a lot of teams for the runs for their money, especially with having Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell. But I'd say for them probably 6 or 7 wins. So recap: I think the Packers win the division with 11 wins. Lions get 9, Bears get 8, and the Vikings get 6. So
okay, so the reason why I reacted that way is because I think the same thing. I think the Packers are going to win this division, and I'm not saying the Lions can't, but I mean Detroit has so many questions to answer when it comes to their defense. And we know their offense is never going to be the weak link. It's just that side of the ball has held them back year after year after year. And it came back to bite them in the NFC Championship, and it could bite them in the butt again if they somehow make it back to the playoffs. But the Packers, I know Jeff Hafley might not be the biggest upgrade when it comes to replacing Joe Barry, but he knows how to help his secondary out. He already has a front 7. And more importantly, Jordan Love is a superstar on the rise. And he literally took one of the youngest receiving corps in the league, and he lifted them up to the playoffs in a playoff victory, and they were 3 points away from potentially beating the 49ers in the divisional round. So I think that the Packers, they got the quarterback, they got the right supporting cast, they got the defense, they got a hell of a coach, and the Lions could definitely repeat. I'm not saying that they don't have a shot, but I just think that, listen, the Packers were in the same situation that the Lions were in a couple of years ago. A slow start, you turn it around late in the year, and the only difference was the Packers actually made the playoffs, and they made the most of it. So I think they're just going to keep going from there, and, we're going to be – you better watch out for Jordan Love. That's all I'm going to say. But I think the Packers will win 11 games. I think the Lions will win 10. They're going to make the playoffs. I think both of them are going to be in there for sure. Yeah, I think the Bears will win. I think the Bears will win 7 or 8 because, listen, we said the same thing last year, with Justin Fields. You got better offensively. Your defense got a lot of pieces, but they underachieved. This season, you need to make sure that you don't fall into that same trap again. And who knows? Maybe the Bears could shock us all and win this outright and beat both the Packers and the Lions. But they got their work cut out for them. I mean, their O-line has a lot of bumps. You got to figure out who the number one option is. You have to make sure that DeAndre Swift is a capable back. Really, both Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus have to do their jobs leading their sides of the ball. And, the Lions and the Packers are not going to be easy cakewalks. And then I think we agreed that the Vikings are going to be less because for the amount of hope and upside that they have on both sides, it's just how is their quarterback going to play? It just comes down to that. And I think they'll win 6 games.
Yeah. No, they'll be competitive. It's again, that
I think they'll play better. I think after that rough first half of the schedule, then they'll start to turn it around. That's what I'll say.
I agree.
All right. That does it for our first division preview. Before we go and wrap this all up, I think it's only fitting that we get to what we're going to do for the next preview. Let me get this done right here. I always keep forgetting how to share this, and then I realized it's not on actual Safari. It's on the StreamYard app. So let's do this. You see the wheel?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we already did the NFC North. Already got that taken out. Let's see which division we're going to be previewing next week.
Good thing you took out the NFC North because you already know we would have rolled on that.
We're going to get the line. The AFC South. That is going to be another competitive division because not only are the Houston Texans hoping to be the scariest team that could be the biggest threat to the Chiefs, but, I mean, the Jaguars are trying to shake off last year's collapse. The Colts need to prove that Anthony Richardson is the guy, and the Titans need to do the same thing with Will Levis. So I think we're going to get an awesome division preview here.
The division of the young quarterbacks. I don't think
absolutely.
So over 25, right? So it's like,
yeah, you got two second year coaches, a first time head coach, and then Doug Peterson, who's in his 3rd year with the team. So that's another thing to pay attention to. This will be really fun. And we actually get to talk about Joshua Hines Allen. No longer will there be 2 Josh Allens in the NFL. And I know that that's not the reason why he changed his name. I love the story behind it, but can't wait to see what Joshua Hines Allen is going to bring to the table next season. And I'm saying this seriously because he deserved his contract extension this past offseason. Anyways, I digress. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more season previews like this. Just like I said, we're doing the AFC South next week, so keep an eye out for that, and along with additional content. And throw down a comment if you agree with any of our assessments over the teams that we made and some of the takes that we went through. And we're going to get into plenty better ones, as the previews unfold. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and we'll see you next week. Hope you had a great 4th of July.